Welcome, everybody. Hi. So, former Chancellor Joel Klein has called Tom Allon a great education reformer, and he wants to be the next mayor of New York City. As a mother of 4 children, young children in New York City, and someone very involved in education reform, that is not only incredibly exciting to me, but seems essential for New York. Tom brings with him an unprecedented combination of attributes to this position: a former high school English teacher, entrepreneur, award-winning journalist, publisher, media executive, successful businessman, and co-founder of 2 thriving public high schools. And of equal importance to all of those accomplishments combined, he's the parent of 3 teenagers who have gone through the New York City public schools. And he's a native New Yorker himself who's spent his entire life in New York City's school system. Even for college and graduate school, he stayed in a New York state of mind. He received a BA in history from Cornell and a master's in journalism from Columbia's prestigious School of Journalism. He has also been a long established and recognized education reform advocate. He's well known within the education community as founder of the Frank McCourt High School and creator of the Blackboard Awards for Teachers, an annual ceremony that celebrates the top 25 teachers in New York City. In fact, Frank McCourt once nominated Tom and his newspapers for a Pulitzer Prize for their groundbreaking coverage of New York's school system. He's taught high school English and journalism at his alma mater, Stuyvesant High School, one of New York City's educational crown jewels. And that experience in the classroom has given him a keen and unique perspective on education and a tremendous appreciation for the importance of great teachers to our society. And he has long been a champion of New York City's teachers. Tom actually felt compelled to run for mayor, largely because of his deep desire to make New York City's educational system a shining example, not only for the rest of this nation, but for the world. He believes unequivocally that the greatest city in the world can and should produce the best schools in the world. So it is my great pleasure, and I'm very, very proud to introduce my friend Tom Allon, our next mayor of New York.
Thank you very much. Oops, you need that BlackBerry. Thank you all for coming. The New York Times has reported that medical care in America is continuing to fail. Despite the ever-increasing knowledge coming from biomedical research and discovery and new clinical procedures that safeguard patient health, mortality and morbidity rates continue to climb. And in some populations, especially the poor and underprivileged, alarmingly so. The Times story went on to detail the publication of the Flexner Report, a document funded by the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching. This story and report was published in 1910. The Flexner Report is as relevant today as it was 102 years ago. The report completely changed the way physicians are trained and prepared to treat patients. A report that became the most important event in the history of medical education, a report which outlined exactly how students must become fully trained physicians before they ever became responsible for the health of their patients. Here are 2 interesting facts about it. The first is that Abraham Flexner was not a physician, not a medical educator. Abraham Flexner was a secondary school teacher and principal for 19 years in Louisville, Kentucky. He left to do graduate work at Harvard and the University of Berlin, and then joined the newly established Andrew Carnegie Foundation as a researcher. At the time, most medical schools were privately owned and existed to make money for their owners by providing what was termed in the report a loose and lax apprenticeship, leading to a certificate to practice medicine. Flexner proposed that these schools meet an entirely different set of standards based on the German model of medical training, with a strong biomedical core and early and continuous hands-on clinical training. The report was a stunning revelation in the field and adopted by the important medical associations of the time. Most of the proprietary schools closed. Those that remained and that developed followed the Flexner recommendations then and still do today. Here is the second interesting fact. We have a Flexner report to fix our schools, to end the failure of our system of public education. It was published in November 2010, exactly 100 years after the Flexner report. It received no media coverage, and all but a very, very few have ever heard of it. This is the report entitled Transforming Teacher Education Through Clinical Practice, a national strategy to prepare effective teachers. It was prepared by the Blue Ribbon Panel on Clinical Preparation and Partnerships for Improved Student Learning. It was commissioned by the National Council for the Accreditation of Teachers' Education, which is the accrediting body for schools of education. Without NCATE's seal of approval, a school of education is out of business. There are three essential villains behind the fall of America's educational supremacy, a fall that gains frightening momentum year after year, free-falling toward the bottom of the list of the world's industrial leaders with no interruption. The first of these villains, according to the NCATE report, are our schools of education. The report states most definitively that they are not preparing their graduates to enter a classroom fully ready to teach. Those certificates provided by our schools of education are for the most part meaningless, even if they are the passport to a teaching job. There's no time today for me to go into detail about what the report says or even to read the names and affiliations of the Blue Ribbon Panel, one which Secretary of Education Arne Duncan called extraordinary. But there are a few phrases which demand sharing. The very first sentence, the education of teachers in the United States needs to be turned upside down. Teacher education as we know it must shift away from academic preparation to actual school-based experiences. It must move to programs that are fully grounded in clinical practice and interwoven with academic content and professional courses. We must place practice at the center of teaching preparation. And the National Research Council has identified clinical preparation as the most important of the three aspects of teacher education that have the greatest impact on student outcomes, along with content knowledge and the quality of candidate teachers. Most states require student teaching somewhere between 10 and 14 weeks, but are silent on what this crucially important experience should look like and how these programs should be held accountable. And finally and significantly in the report, all teacher preparation programs in school districts must look at teacher preparation as a mutual responsibility that they share by working together.